This is Orcs Must Die Deathtrap. We're here on Xbox Series X. Be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. So this is the newest entry in the Orcs Must Die franchise. Things are a little bit different here because the game has switched from a story focus to more of a rogue-lite experience where you can play for the first time cooperatively for up to, well, 4 players. Traditionally, you know, the original was like 1 player, and then it became 2 players, and now it's 4-player co-op action, which is pretty cool if you've got a group of people or they're able to find a group of people to play with. And basically, if you're not familiar with the Orcs Must Die series, it's an incredibly great franchise. I highly recommend playing the series. I think it's quite a lot of fun to play. I've had a great time with these games over the years. Seeing the characters kind of grow and age has been a treat. And this newest entry is certainly different and quite ambitious in terms of doing something different. And yeah, you might find it quite fascinating. Did someone go all the way? Oh, there's a character over there. Okay. So, yeah, if you're not familiar with Orcs Must Die, you are attempting to kill orcs. There are hundreds of them, and they come in different forms, shapes, sizes, and styles. There's even things that aren't necessarily orcs that are out there trying to, you know, run through the mill and the gauntlet and trying to kill you. And you alone, or with others, or, you know, however many you want, are essentially trying to prevent the orcs from making their way to your rift. And this style is a little bit different in this game because, as I said, it's a roguelite experience. So you're basically doing runs. So when you play the game, you do like a run of the game where it's like, okay, I'm gonna do X amount of missions in kind of a row, and you know, that's kind of my stat. And then you're building up your character and trying to get unique elements and earn rewards, and then get skull things and trying to like bump up your stats. And then your threads will kind of change things a little bit further. And there'll be things that are like positives or negatives, and before you even start playing a match of this game, you will basically be choosing, you know, kind of like something that is detrimental or something that is positive to your particular run of the match. So for this match, we have kobolds that are basically like infected, and that kind of impacts things. Or maybe you'll make like kobolds will have twice the health, or maybe like headshots won't do as much damage, or stuff like that. Where if you're familiar with Orcs Must Die, you'll know what I'm talking about. So here on the Series X, if you haven't already kind of noticed, the performance is not necessarily ideal. It definitely does drop frames across a number of maps. Sometimes it's fine, like it's playable, but like there are situations where you've got like more kind of players playing together, and like there's more orcs because it kind of scales. And yeah, it could definitely get to a situation where, you know, I would say performance is not necessarily ideal. I think you've been seeing that even here in the, you know, the video for sure, that the performance is, you know, kind of like tanks a little bit here or there. It's an Unreal Engine 5 game. It's actually pretty nice looking. Like, it's going to be a temporally scaled thing towards like 4K, but the internal resolution is going to be a lot lower. Like, it doesn't look bad. Like, it's actually pretty clear, and I love the aesthetics and the style for the orcs. They did incredible work upgrading, I would say, the look of the orcs. I'm kind of worried about flying things sneaking in here. That's why I'm kind of putting these traps up. So yeah, so the orcs, they look fantastic in this game. The visual detail for them is great. I think they did an excellent job kind of bumping up the aesthetics. They all have their fun little animated deaths. Like, this is an Orcs Must Die game, I would say, like, true and true. It's really genuinely quite enjoyable. Seriously, like, I have a lot of fun playing this. You know, obviously the performance, but, you know, I kind of can look past that too because I'm such a fan of the series. If you do find this game really interesting, I would highly recommend going back and playing like a more traditional Orcs Must Die as well, Orcs Must Die 3, where there's a story and very large-scale conflicts and stuff like that. That game is absolutely excellent. I love it. Orcs Must Die 2 is like PC only, and I think you could still get the 360 kind of original version of Orcs Must Die. They actually really need to do like a little remastered package, would be great to be able to enjoy the other ones. I also love that this series is kind of unique from the perspective of progression. So, like, the main characters actually do get older as time goes on, which is neat. So I've actually gotten to see these characters age over years. So I would say if you can get past kind of the performance element of it, this is actually a pretty neat game. And it's definitely got some interesting twists to it. And if you're playing in large-scale teams, it definitely takes a lot of communication. Like, I guess if you have a team that's, like, doing their job well, it's not as big of a deal. But, like, you know, I do think communication is, like, a big part of things. And I don't know. Like, in general, to me, this is, like, pretty fun. And there's a decent, like... I don't know if I've even seen necessarily all the maps, because it's like sort of, you know, it's a rogue-lite thing, so it's different every time, the selection of maps you get for the rotation. So, you know, theoretically it could change up and there could be something, you know, whatever. But yeah, that's kind of the style of the game, is it's not like you're not doing a campaign anymore. Like, in the older games, you were doing, like, a story, and the levels were set, and you had certain challenges and stuff like that. Basically, this is kind of like a spin-off, and they're just trying something new with it. And I actually, like, I don't mind the concept of it. Like, I actually think it makes sense, gameplay-wise. It fits the style of Orcs Must Die, and I kind of like it. I do wish it was a little more fluid and smoother here on the Series X, but I think the foundation here is actually, like, really genuinely good for this game. Like, this is actually quite fun to play. It's got so many orcs, and, you know, they really have tried to expand the scope of the series. And I think people that are fans are really going to enjoy it. If you've never played the series before, I think this is also like an easier entry to get into. Which might sound a little bit odd, but yeah, because, like, you know, obviously this has been a really long ongoing series. It's been around for probably, like, well over a decade at this point. I think it was like 2012 was like the original or something like that. Like, it's been around super long. And it's one of my favorite little, I would say, lesser known kind of franchises. Like, it's got, like, little quirks, and it's kind of silly. I think it is something that, like, sort of all ages can kind of play too. You're just sort of mowing down these orcs, and it works. It really does. Yeah, I think you can kind of jump in here and appreciate the gameplay style. And obviously, again, really kind of overlooking the frame rate element of it. But, like, it's a nice looking game. I like what they're going for. The concept, it makes a lot of sense to me. I think this is a lot of fun and enjoyable. And it's just kind of different. Like, there's not too many games out there like this. The core gameplay, of course, as you've been seeing, it's a tower defense where you have an active, you know, role in that, in what's going on, like your traps. Technically, if you do a good enough job, you shouldn't ever really have to do much of anything, but you know, obviously your traps are kind of the big highlight here. You have to survive so many waves. Every time an enemy gets into the rift, you lose a rift point, and when your rift hits the end, then everything fails, and then there's difficulty options as well if you need more of a challenge or less. And, this game's also got a really interesting system set up where characters are a little different, so you pick different mage options. There's like this, it's like a, I don't know if it's a bear thing, but there's like a guy with like a giant axe, and my pal was playing as the character, and I was like, that's really cool. I'm more used to the, usually a sword crossbow combo, but there's different characters do different things. Some are reminiscent of like the original characters, and yes, the original characters do kind of like, they're here. There's like a mage headquarters, as to say, where basically you kind of like have a base of operations where you gather people and then you go and play. That run's not the best, but you can kind of like run around in there and test things out and stuff. It's kind of neat, honestly. It's a neat idea. And then you'll see on the map too, in the far right there, it's always good to use the map. You'll see how the doors open. So as you play, more areas will open. And that's why it's really important for you to like strategize before the match starts, so that you have the optimal setup for the best situation that's present within this game. So there is like lots of strategy to this. If anyone has played Orcs Must Die, you'll know what I'm talking about in terms of performance and challenge and trying to create the best gauntlet and setup to take out, you know, potential enemies that you can. That's a big part of Orcs Must Die. And as I said, this is something I've... Oh, not the stupid thing. Oh, that was close. I used the beam accidentally, and yeah. Like, this is a really genuinely interesting series, especially as you, like, build up these strong foundations, and you create these gauntlets, and you use barricades, because a lot of the game is about crowd control. And you do this crowd control, and you set up a situation where you can be successful. You know, that is a massive part of the experience, where you are able to actually create something that allows you to not have any damage, and then of course there's usually a community around creating the best situation and the best setup for the optimal orc killing you know, design. Like, you don't want the orcs to get in, you need to stop them from coming, and your setup will determine basically if you survive and stuff. As I said, like, if you have a good enough setup, theoretically your traps should do all the work. Of course, there's these other tricky guys that like come after you specifically, and they've definitely changed things up so that it's more of a challenge. Like, it is kind of daunting to take on these large maps because they're massive. Like, the setup for this map, I didn't even show it in the recording. It took like, I think like 5 to 10 minutes just like sitting there and actually trying to think like where they're gonna go, what they're gonna do, what is the best setup for me to survive the waves. And I think that's quite interesting for this game, is creating the ideal scenario that you will be able to do stuff. And I think it's okay balanced as far as a challenge goes. Like, I think, you know, they got things going on pretty well. It's definitely interesting. Are they gonna come in around? Or I'm trying to think of the way that they're gonna sort of come around here. Yeah, they just run in a straight line, don't they? And then the edges of the orcs kind of running in and where they're gonna go. That's really helpful too, to understand what they're doing. I know my layout is maybe perhaps a tad lazy, but I think it gets the job done. You also now have this really handy dandy teleporter thing, because the maps are so large. You can place this on the map. Sometimes the roll of the dice will give you like multiple ones that you can use, or your teammates have them. And you can set up these sort of teleporters to get you back to base if you kind of like overextend yourself. But yeah, I think they've... Like, it's a really appealing looking game. There's lots of different maps. I just, again, wish it ran a little bit better, as the performance leaves a lot to be desired, but if you can kind of get over that, it's not unbearable. It really isn't. But, like, if you can get past that, I do think this is actually, like, a pretty wonderful sort of experience. It's the exactly, like... It's the Orcs Must Die formula, and it's just in, like, a different wrapper. And it kind of works, and it could be a really good entry point for some people for the first time to be like, oh, this is a really cool series, and they might really, like, I think you might legitimately enjoy this franchise. That's where I keep wanting to plug, you know, Orcs Must Die 3, because I love that one so much, and it's so good. Like, it was on Stadia, got funded through Stadia, and then they ported it to other platforms. I think it's a great game, and, you know, if you could play the other ones too, that'd be great. And, yeah, this one's, it's just a different approach to Orcs Must Die. I am curious what other veterans of this franchise will think of this one, because it is a change. Like, you know, it is different, but I think fundamentally it's the same kind of concept. It's just like it does really move away from the other concepts of like having a story and stuff like that from prior entries. And I don't know how much people care about that aspect of it, but I always kind of liked that there was a campaign. Like, endless mode, like, there's always other modes. There's, like, endless mode and competitive stuff. Like, there was always other things to do, but, you know, it is quite a change-up that we're sitting here doing something that is basically, yeah, a roguelite mode. Like, it's a good take on this. Like, it's a creative idea. I can definitely see they were trying to come up with an idea to, like, mix things up a bit more, probably just not to make the franchise feel too stale, or maybe they didn't know where to go for a story, I don't know. I mean, it seems like something you could kind of endlessly do, but I guess it's your characters are getting aged so much too, that's a thing. But, yeah, I would say this is a really cool offering. It's a lot of fun to engage with, the combat's neat, I like the look of the traps. It's certainly on brand with the franchise, if you've played it over the years like myself. There's a lot to enjoy, a lot of good challenge. Your first death mission costs no stuff, charge beam, critical chance 10%. And hopefully I'm kind of showing off the game pretty well. Like, I know obviously this is a bit of a different kind of a series for a lot of people, but I hope it's a good onboarding. I really kind of want this franchise to be successful. Like I said, I've enjoyed it so thoroughly over the years. And it's had a lot of, I wouldn't say ups and downs, but like, you know, available in different platforms, in different ways, in different settings. I just love that it still continues to survive and be available. Because I think the most disappointing thing would be to see it kind of vanish, but yeah, hopefully you'll maybe give it a bit of a shot, overlook the performance stuff of it, and have fun defending the rifts, because it's a really cool series, and like I said, one of my favorites. And even if you find this one to be a little ill-performant, gameplay-wise and stuff like that, maybe you'll take a look at Orcs Must Die 3, and maybe you'll find that the tighter style of a campaign setup is more intriguing to you, and you might really get into the series and enjoy, you know, years of really well compiled games, and a little bit of, like, it's not like a deep story, but it is kind of neat seeing, like, the characters age and get older and stuff, and, you know, it's kind of funny, the two leads and their history, and will they, won't they? I'm just kidding. But no, it is... Yeah, like, I really love Orcs Must Die, and it was fun to play something similar but different. Like, it's weird, because, like, traditionally I kind of just, like, roll through a campaign of this, but it's, you know, you're just doing matches, so it's kind of like the Orcs Must Die I know, but they've just, you know, twisted it. Done something new, done something a little bit fresh, and I am very curious to see what people's responses are going to be to this type of game, because I know it's different and new and something a little bit fresh, but also a little familiar. and I know how people always respond to that kind of thing, but I think you could have a good time playing this game if you give it a chance, and really love the franchise like I do. It's really cool.